Welcome back to another little lesson. And this week we are focusing on ancient China. And in fact, if you read the entire chapter 5, it's looking at all of ancient Asia kind of as a whole. It breaks it down into those four sections as you see over here: ancient China, the steppes, Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asia, and of course, Vedic India and the fall of the Maurya Empire. Now, of course, I might be mispronouncing words and names throughout this video, and I deeply apologize. I am going to try my best, but of course, if you know how to pronounce them properly, please let me know. So we start with prehistoric China. That's the big landmass, that big area. When you think of Asia, you probably think of China since it's so big and so domineering. It developed independently because the crops that grew, the fishing developed, the tools out of the bone and wood that kind of grew from it was all based on the geography around it. One thing that you'll notice if you read through the chapters is that each place we talk about is kind of developing a little bit different because the geography is so diverse. It helps them be independent, it helps them kind of grow and do their own thing. We'll notice that when we compare Asia to European civilizations, just how different they are. The Yangtze and Yellow rivers are two major rivers that dominate. You can see and kind of the landscape there. The rivers kind of flow right there, and they're the ones that provide life to the area. That's where kind of it all started from: mountains, deserts, grasslands, plateaus, jungles. All of this area is jam-packed with such a diverse and very, very different ecosystems, geographies that made it grow into what it is. So when we look at the early China, it was a bunch of different separated states. It was a area that had very different ideas and had different kind of like growth. So you can see with the Shang dynasty was kind of that first dynasty that started up. They created a written script that was written on bones and turtle shells, aka called oracle bones. They were the ones that predicted the future, and they're the ones that really help us open the past. We don't know all the words that the ancient Chinese wrote in because the language has shifted and changed and has been lost over time, like languages do. But the big thing there is we have found enough that we're able to really translate these oracle bones into here's what we know, here's what we're guessing, and we kind of fill in those blanks. And it allowed us to kind of open it up more and more. This first writing symbol had like a thousands and thousands of different symbols. It was one of those where it was very dramatic in the writing. We're not there yet, but it was that writing symbol, as you can see there, just kind of that different script that we're not used to. So the religion was the backbone of the dynasty of the Shang dynasty, and when the Zhao took over in around 1045, they built upon it. This is one of those things where you see when dynasties grow, they took what they conquered and instead of erasing it or throwing it away, saying, oh, that was worthless, that was pathetic, we're never going to do that, they allowed it to grow. They're like, oh, they did something. We like that. Now we're going to add to it. They grabbed farming and animal husbandry from the previous dynasties and they ran with it. One of the things that we see throughout this, because religion is so important in ancient China, is the mandate of heaven. It's basically that cycle that allows the rulers to rule. They say, hey, the heavens, the gods above have given us the rule. We're the ones who are supposed to be in charge. We're the ones who have been anointed by the deities to be the rulers. And then so they're ruling. And when things are going good, it's like, hey, see, we got that mandate. It's the will of the gods that we should still stay here. But the second they start being corrupt, the second some bad things start happening, people start wondering, ooh, do they still have the mandate from the gods? Do they still want them to be there? And as that kind of corruption, as that idea of, oh, maybe they're not such a good ruler anymore grows, the people have the right, the people have the God's will to overthrow that ruler and kind of kick him out. and start all over. So that's that kind of like continuous cycle of what's moral, what's not. Throughout the Zhao dynasty, you can see many warring states. We've got different time periods where they really had some effects on it. And in this time period, something called Confucianism grows. Confucius is that leader, and it's not so much of a religion, but more of how to act morally, how to be good. And it's just kind of like different sayings, different teachings, which help grow with Taoism and legalism and kind of the ideas behind it. So as we said, during this like end of the Zhao era, it's we're fighting, we're fighting, we're fighting. Well, the Qin dynasty owns a portion of ancient China. Here is Qin Shi Huang or Qin Shi Huangdi, depending on different sources. And he is the leader of the Qin dynasty, and he is like, it's time to conquer the world. He is one of those emperors who is considered the very first emperor of China because he unifies it. It is thanks to him that he kicks out all the other rulers. He gives them the different jobs, he conquers them, and he's like, oh, now you're going to be this or that and basically saying, I'm the captain now. He is a very ruthless ruler, but things were going well for his dynasty, as in China was expanding, he was taking over unification of things, and that's kind of how he continued that idea. And it was a time of like unrest, of not very good stability because of all the warring states. So here he comes in, even if he's a little ruthless, even if he's not the nicest guy, they were like, oh, at least we now have that stability, one ruler, one person in charge, and his military was militaristic and ready to go. With him becoming the first emperor, he did he did two things that like left their mark. First things first was his tomb. Right here you can see the terracotta warriors. Oh my goodness. When we look at his tomb, I suggest looking at videos of it because it's fascinating. It's this giant tomb, and he brought his army with him. Each and every one of these warriors is completely different. They have different facial expressions, different facial hair, different armor. They had actual weapons with them, not like carved out weapons, but legit weapons with them. We found horses, and there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them. And we keep finding more as we dig more of his tomb up. They're all facing towards the east because that's where he had to conquer. He wanted to bring his army to the afterlife with him. Rumor has it that deep inside his tomb, where his mausoleum is, where his body is laid, he has a map of China with emeralds and gold and the flowing rivers of mercury. Now, with a lot of rulers, they kind of get focused on immortality. They don't want to give up that rule. They want to keep it themselves, especially ancient emperors, ancient dictators. They don't want to share. And so Qin Shi had one of those ideas that maybe Mercury is the elixir of life, is this place that is like we're going to live forever. If you want to check out videos on the elixirs of life and other ideas of immortality, our learning stuff videos definitely is a place to check them out. But he drank mercury and it probably ended up poisoning him and killing him. Another big thing that he did was he made the Great Wall of China. Now, he wasn't like starting from scratch. There's little walls all along, but he's the one who connected them. He was the one who said, let's go. This should be a nice, easy border. The next little part of this book talks about the steppes. So you can see right here, we're talking about right there, Eastern and Western steppes. It's a vast grassland. Mongolia and the Khans are from here. So Genghis Khan, Khan means leader in that terminology, and they go with it. So the Silk Road it traveled through there and through this parts because it was connecting Europe to Asia with its trade, and it was making a lot of money. Now, when China and the Khans worked together, it made even more money because they weren't fighting. They weren't spending that time for protection. They were actually building and working together, allowing goods to flow back and forth on that beautiful Silk Road. The Khans, the clans were nomadic with so many open areas. You can see that it's talking about tribes, federations, and it's not so much we're going to settle in one place, but we're going to move around. We're going to check things out. And the Mongols, the Mongolians from the ancient times definitely worked with it. So they learned how to ride horses well before everything else. They used their ideas and were able to have all these different areas. The Khanites, you can see there, the territories where they controlled. You've got where China was, and then a bunch of different tribes around it. So you saw that their power expanded, their power went with it because they were nomadic and they can move from place to place. When we look at Korea, it connected to China, but it was that peninsula and it kind of had those mountains to have those borders, but it really traded well. And with the decline of Chinese strength, because it's going to ebb and flow, and definitely when there's internal fighting, Korea itself was able to solidify. It's kind of like, oh, we're a little more separate. We're able to take advantage of that weakened state, and you can kind of see where Korea was. As it grows there, many kingdoms kind of rise and fall, and Buddhism kind of takes its hold, and the Buddhist monuments start to grow, and that's the religion that Korea kind of works with. Japan, part of that Ring of Fire. Japan is four main islands, as you can see there in that little map, and then thousands and thousands of little ones. So it really takes advantage of being part of that Pacific Ocean. Believe that three waves of early humans went to the islands, and that's kind of why you'll see a little difference of cultures here and there and there and here. And around 300 BC, agriculture became huge and new ideas really started to grow with it. Just like in any island nation, their resources are limited. So they started to use what they had and start advancing with it. They're the ones who kind of were isolated away from the mainland area. And so you see the similarities, but you also see where they branch off and go on their own. So the next group is the Southeast Asia. It kind of gets grouped together. You can see all the different countries, all the different places that they kind of group together. And it's basically because of the geography kind of cuts it off, shows it a little differently. You can see cultivation, general agriculture. That's once again where it grows really, really well. Buddhism and Hinduism, starting in India, branch off to this surrounding area pretty easily and becomes kind of like a good center of trade because the Himalayan mountains kind of cut off some areas. So there are great trade routes through there. And you can see kind of like their architecture, their art, and definitely showcasing their areas. The last little bit are Vedic India, kind of the rise of the Vedic texts and really bringing in the Aryans, the Brahmins, and all relating to Buddhism and Hinduism. So the religion's starting to really grow there, and they start seeing the rise and falls of the empires based on the different beliefs of the area and the different growths. And then, yeah, as you finish up wrapping up this reading, it is perfect for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to help. If I've greatly mispronounced something, that is my bad. I'm more than happy to learn how to pronounce those words and terms and names and all this stuff in between. So, from here to you, have fun and good luck.